Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon and welcome to the Nature Show with me, your host, Raheed Salam, and the wonderful Aaron Matthew. And this week we're talking about habitats. We're talking about habitats and we're talking about nature and habitat and the sort of urban and rural green spaces we live in and what we find in our habitats. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. But Aaron and I were well, first of all, Aaron, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Excited to delve into habitats.
Absolutely. I'm excited to delve into habitats as well, except that you and I both woke up to the snow today. What was going on?
It's a strange one. We're in the middle of a cold snap, and it was definitely a scary surprise.
It was a scary surprise. I know that it is a little bit colder at the moment, but I wasn't completely expecting that. And it's strange actually, because you and I have had this conversation previously, whereby the seasons have really changed.
Definitely.
And I can't remember the last time we've had snow in November.
I think we had one weird snow day last year. I want to say just a couple days in November randomly. I think so, honestly.
Possibly.
But not long standing. I don't think this will be either. I think we'll have a couple days where it's just really chilly and then suddenly it'll be 10 degrees again.
Ladies and gents, we're not going to sit here talking boringly about the weather. It's just that the weather is really important because with the sun and with the wind and with the rain, that absolutely affects the habitats that we live in. So welcome to the show. And as you know, Aaron and I give the view of both Christian and Muslim dialogue with regards to nature and where nature fits in the Quran and in with the Bible, and also as a young black man and a slightly older Asian man, we bring that cultural flavor to the show as well.
That's right.
But I wanted to start off really with a verse of the Quran, and I'm always looking for verses of the Quran whereby God Almighty is telling us about nature, and I wanted to find something about habitat, and there's something in here. There are lots of verses of the Quran, but one that I particularly liked here was from chapter 13, Juz 13, which is Surah Al-Ra'd, where it says, where God Almighty himself says, Allah is the one who raised the heavens without pillars, that you can see them. Then he positioned himself on the throne and subjugated the sun and the moon, each of them running to an appointed time. He manages all matters, elaborating the signs so that you may be sure of meeting your Lord. So straight away, God is putting himself above his creation. And he's sitting on his throne, and thereafter there is the creation itself, and top line, it's the earth, it's the sun and the moon, and it's the sun and the moon which are subjugated to God Almighty himself. And within there, God's hand is all over the earth. So when we think about habitats, when we think about plants and animals and the land and the sea and the air and the way in which there is interaction between plants and birds and insects and mammals and animals and also us, all of this is being controlled by the night and the day, which is the sun and the moon. And you know, we are both religions that look into this, and thereafter God Almighty is saying that when you're managing these affairs, that you can be sure of meeting your Lord. So actually, there's a finality between this world and this earth is just a stepping stone to the hereafter. And I want to go on to verse number 3, and this is the only other thing I wanted to talk about here, is that he, God, is the one who spread out the earth and made mountains and rivers on it, and created it in pairs of 2 from all the fruits. He makes the night cover the day. Surely in that there are signs for those of a people who think. And finally, verse number 4, and in earth there are tracts of land neighboring each other, and gardens of grapes and palms and date palms, some having twin trunks, some having a single one. All of them are irrigated with the same water. We make some of them better than others in taste. Surely in that there are signs of people who understand. That's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal that God Almighty is telling us about the diversity of habitat, is telling us that the land are replenished between the mountains and the rivers, and the green land itself. And therein, you've got fruits. You've got fruits of different variety, of different taste. And I guess this thing about taste is that we're all different. We all have different taste buds, but even within there are certain things that are good for you and certain things that are perhaps less good for you. But God in there is talking about gardens of grapes and farms and date palms, which is just superb.
It really is, honestly. And it reminded me of a verse in Job talking about, how God seats himself above creation. So this is Job 12:7 through 10. But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of these does not know that the hands of the Lord has done this? In his hands is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. And again, it's that imagery of seating above creation I quite like.
Absolutely. It's just superb. It's just phenomenal. And I think one of the things that you and I wanted to really talk about was that sometimes we don't appreciate, or we forget, or we neglect, or we don't know
True.
that nature is something that is a wondrous thing. And because we live in a town like Luton, and because we appreciate what man has done in terms of the built environment, that sometimes we forget the beauty and significance of God's creation, and we cannot replicate it.
Very true. And I think that's the perfect time to get into what we're talking about today, habitats. So what is a habitat?
What is a habitat? But before we do that, very briefly, I just want to say, if anybody wants to tell us what they're thinking about with regards to habitat, or has a reflective moment on what we've said, I know we've got lots of amazing, mention you all by name because there's so many of you, but if you do want to get in contact and tell us what your thoughts are about habitats, you can drop us a call, drop us a line on 01582 481 822, or drop us a text message on 0779 481 822. Nature and habitats this week with me and Aaron on the Nature Show on Inspire FM 105.1 FM. Habitats, go for it.
So I'm going to keep it really plain and really simple. It's just the area that something lives in, or where it inhabits, really. So it could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be a fungus, it could be you or me. Our habitat is just where we live.
Perfect. When we think about habitat, though, or habitats, we do specifically, I guess, think about plants and animals, and the way in which plants and animals do come together. And the interesting word coming on from habitat is ecosystem.
That's right.
And the way in which there is this interaction between that. So, ladies and gents, you've got your 2-mark question for a habitat and your 2-mark question for an ecosystem, for those of you who are doing GCSE biology,
yeah.
or geography at the moment. So yeah, so what are the sorts of habitats and ecosystems that are prevalent in Luton?
That's a good question. And believe it or not, just like the people, the habitat is also diverse here in Luton. You can have anything from a chalk stream to a chalk meadow, or a floodplain meadow, an ancient woodland, which I cannot wait to talk about in this episode. All sorts, a simple meadow. It could just be a park, anything really.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned parks there, because when we think about just a vast green expanse, often you would probably think that is a meadow.
Yeah.
But actually, the award-winning parks that we have here in Luton, and the numerous parks we've got here in Luton, are meadows by and large. But they are meadows where we've put our human footprint, and we've put down some swings, or we put down a cricket pitch or a football pitch.
Cheeky roundabout in there.
A cheeky roundabout in there. I do like a cheeky roundabout. So these things are things. And when we think about a meadow, what sorts of things would one find in a meadow, Aaron?
Before we get into that, I just want to let everyone know what a meadow actually is. It's just an area dominated by grass, and our parks are that. Mind you, the grass is cut pretty low, but still a meadow nevertheless.
Thank you very much to Luton Parks team for taking care of that. In fact, a shout out to the wonderful Sam Willis, and who's Parks Officer here in Luton Borough Council, and all the wonderful things. And interestingly, I was cycling over the busway the other day, and again, it was being cut down for winter. I think it's cut twice a year. Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of land management of meadows or of trees, a lot of that does happen. So typically, what sorts of things do we see in a meadow?
Okay, so you can find butterflies. Now, they are meadow specialists. They quite enjoy the long grass, and it's great for them to actually soak up the sun. Butterflies, ladybugs, all sorts of insects. You could have ants, beetles. You can have birds flying over and nesting nearby. What else might you find in a meadow? You might even find a mouse.
It's interesting, actually, that bugs, as you say, or larger animals, whether they be rodents or birds, etc., they're not the sort of thing, I think, that we are necessarily particularly fond of being with. But one animal that we do see quite a lot, not necessarily only in a meadow because you need a tree as well, is the wonderful squirrel.
Yes.
Squirrels are the one sort of animal that people love in Luton, and we see them quite a lot all over.
They're quite iconic, and I'll be honest, I think it's pretty privilege. Yeah.
Do you think so?
I do, because they are rodents, right? They're related to rats and mice and some of our least favorite animals. Not my personal least favorite, just general consensus. What is the difference other than, a bushy tail and a nice coat? Pretty privilege.
It is pretty privilege, but it's also the way in which I mean I remember being in a royal park in London, and it's not quite coming to me right now, but it will come to me. I remember being in a park and that the pretty privilege of having that rodent with a tail and a pretty coat coming right up to you and sitting and watching me eat and drink, and they are so acclimatized to humans. And I think I see very similar behavior in both Stockwood and Wardown Park, in that they are very much in keeping and in tune with humans now.
Yeah, it's a thing called habituation. They kind of just get used to our presence and decide, well, these guys know where the food's at. If I keep looking at them long enough, they'll probably feed me. So it's a behavior that gets reinforced quite easily. And we're all guilty of doing it. We go to the park and we go, oh, how cute. You want to offer it something, and suddenly they're all around you.
Absolutely. Talking about another native species. I say native species, but a species native to Luton is the wonderful red kite.
Yes.
So the red kite, which was almost extinct roughly 20 years ago in Bedfordshire, I believe.
Closer to 40, no?
Closer to 40, but then reintroduced into the UK, into Bedfordshire and into the UK through and that was the Spanish red kite. Well, actually, we've had this issue of or the Spanish rather have had this issue of the red kite becoming I don't think becoming extinct, but we have exported our red kite back to Spain.
Yeah,
just
that's
to
right.
Reintroduce the species. A positive migration.
It's a bit of recycling, I'd say. It's almost like animal recycling the way I see it. We needed them, now they need us, and it's just that little bit of balance. And I think that's what we're going to get into when we look at, the next step up from habitats, which is ecosystems. And we've broken it down before in an episode, but Raheed, can you remember that definition?
The definition of ecosystem?
Yeah.
All yours. Go for it.
All me. Okay, so the eco part comes from the root for, I believe, home. And then, what was the second half of it? Well, system is obviously, and I know that's a network of things and kind of how they balance, but the root word I want to say,
I think we were at ecology and logos.
Yes, that was
logos, the study of life.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is quite important for us here in Luton is that we are now a town of 230,000 people, and we are very much an urban environment with lots of parks in between in between, you know, the different wards and the wards in between us, scattered across Luton, not scattered across Luton, but across Luton, and then we've got the River Lee that goes all the way through the middle of it, and then we have placed road, rail, cycle also running all the way through Luton. So the way in which things have been broken up have had an impact on those ecosystems. And then, of course, we're going to get into this a little bit more in part 2 of the show, but, you know, climate change as well. What is it that the human footprint does to these ecosystems, and how is it that we can live harmoniously with the ecosystem or ecosystems that we have?
Okay, so when we're talking about ecosystems, these are a network of plants, animals, and fungi. So it all starts at the lowest level. So some things we don't think have a big impact have a major impact. So, for example, let's take the park we were talking about earlier on. It could be Leagrave Park, for example. The difference between, you know, mowing the lawn a few weeks earlier in the year and a few weeks later could be an entire generation of butterflies or of bees or whatever the case may be. It's preserving that area long enough for generations to survive, right? And let's say you're building a road in between. I'm going to talk about a little bit of the bigger animal, but I think one of the most iconic animals we have here in the UK, and that is the hedgehog. Nothing quite like it, spiky, adorable, and just great. But they don't actually do well when it comes to traveling across roads. They're out at night, they're low to the ground, we can't see them in cars, and they're often, unfortunately, the results of many collisions that they don't result well in.
Absolutely. I think the hedgehog and your friendly fox are the two that do not do well because of that. But I think there's something that we can do on a really granular level, on a very low, simple level, and that is explore our gardens.
Yes.
Exploring your garden is the best way to actually connect with nature. I must admit, and apologies for all you folks out there that do like
a manicured lawn
or a paving slab.
Even worse. Oh dear.
And tend to make it flat, and there is benefit to that. I can't quite think what it is at the moment, so apologies for that. But if you do, no, in all honesty, you know, there is benefit to that, because, you know, you will need an area where you need to, for example, have in between your green spaces. But it's the green spaces in particular that are really important. So we'd love to hear from anybody who manages their garden, who out there regularly trims their lawn, or regularly plants something, or regularly puts some seed out for your bird, or for your, dare I say, has anybody got any squirrels in their garden?
I reckon some people do.
Anyone's got any squirrels in the garden, or does anybody have any pets which they keep in their garden? Interestingly enough, I was speaking to a friend and colleague earlier on today who manages sheep.
Ooh.
And also manages chickens. The chicken are in her garden, the sheep are not in her garden. So that's really cool. But yeah, managing your garden is the easiest way of connecting with an ecosystem, correct?
Yeah, I'd say so, definitely. Because again, it's like that little change we talked about, you know, not mowing your lawn throughout the spring and summer months. You would see so much more life in there. Again, I'm going to name some prettier animals to really try to encourage our viewers. Butterflies, ladybugs, and even, you know, solitary bees may pop up, or bees, wasps, flowers, wildflowers, so many, just by letting it alone for a few months. And I know it can be quite intimidating, because we look and we think, oh gosh, the grass has gotten so high, but it does change everything. Even the temperature changes around your garden just in neighboring bits, and that can be the difference again for you seeing more butterflies or less in your garden, just that microclimate alone.
It's a tricky time of year because it is slightly colder, or very colder. It is slightly colder at this moment in time, and it's going to remain cold for the next couple of months. So actually, this is probably a really good time to start thinking about what you're going to do with your garden, so that you are ready for those first days of spring. Whether that's thinking about soil composition and what you're doing with your soil, whether that's thinking about whether or not you're going to start composting, or whether or not you're going to start thinking, okay, there is a patch, or there is some grass or a vegetable patch or a flower or a flowering patch that I can use, and start thinking about it. Now is actually the time to start thinking about that. Definitely. Aaron, what are the sorts of things people might want to do in terms of that planning and things coming into their ground, all those creepy crawlies that everybody has in their garden?
Right. Okay. So I'm sure we have a lot of gardeners listening in, and they will, be keen to have their flowers in the ground and all sorts of things they want to grow. The most important thing, I guess, from a nature standpoint, is that these flowers are pollinator friendly. That they attract bees, butterflies, beetles in, and actually kind of preserve that environment. Or for people who grow bigger things, if you're looking at perhaps maybe a shrub or a hedge, maybe something that produces fruit to attract birds in, and stuff like that will definitely help. Again, we've talked about leaving your lawn growing, which is a massive help. But one of the best things you can possibly do for nature in your garden, put in a pond or a bird bath. It will change everything. It will attract birds. It will help insects reproduce. It changes so much in such a short bit of space because water is such a precious resource. And we've talked about it in a whole another episode, but I just couldn't, not mention it here.
Absolutely. So these are really important things that we definitely need to start thinking about doing. When is a good time to start planting? So a lot of people will think, well, the winter is not a good time to plant, but it is sort of pre-plant period, but also planting period. In terms of things that people can start doing right now, what are the things that you can suggest right now?
Okay, well, again, this is a bit bold, but if we are looking at trees and hedges and stuff like that, this is the time of year to go for it. They need a bit of frost in the ground and a bit of water to make sure that they don't dry out. So now is the perfect time if you're ready to get the gloves on. In terms of this time of year, a bird feeder is never a bad time of year, especially now because, there are less fruits on the trees, there are less berries around, and they're great for all year round. Again, same for a pond or a bird bath. There's no bad time to put them in. Go for it.
Absolutely. Ladies and gents, if you are thinking that you want to plant a tree, or you want to put a sapling in the ground, now actually is a really good time, because it is the roots that go into the ground, and those roots taking root and becoming strong and nourishing themselves with water and getting really strong inside the ground now, whilst the soil is frozen or very cold. That actually is going to make a really solid base. So if you have never planted a tree, or if you thought, or you're thinking you'd like to plant a tree or a shrub, now is the time to do it. I'm not actually sure myself what sorts of plants or shrubs would work well. Aaron, any thoughts on that?
So I would encourage everyone to do their research first about your garden, where it is, and what you actually want. I was going to say, because not every plant is the same in terms of how it behaves in your soil, and your soil could be entirely chalk, and then you'd have a really lovely flower garden without really trying. Or you can have, a clay soil that doesn't do very well in the rain, or all sorts of different things can affect it. But I would say definitely look at something pollinator friendly in terms of plants and make sure they are native. When I say native, I just mean that naturally they can be found in the UK, because you'd be surprised. You might plant something in your garden and find it can take over the country. I mean, when we have time, we'll talk about some plants and some animals that have just kind of settled in and you wouldn't even know they weren't from here. All sorts, really. Again, I would say fruit trees, hedges are also lovely because that's that shelter and protection. You can even get things like birds' nests in there, or even, if you were living in the right part of the country or even the county, things like dormice, and they're extremely rare.
Excellent. Thanks. Really good advice there. Really good advice. So think practically, think locally, think about what is going to, think about the sorts of things you're going to want in your garden. So if you want birds and bees in your garden, then have something that does flower, have something that will have fruit on it, but start thinking about that, and really think about what you enjoy and what is going to form the ecosystem within your garden, and start thinking about that right now. Great. We've had some top tips. And they've been really cool. In the next part of the show, we are going to talk a little bit more about God's creation, but a little bit more about the types of species that we do see in and around Luton. And one of the things that I do urge listeners to consider is getting out and about into the green spaces. There are lots of really fantastic nature walks that you can do all around Luton, when I sometimes stand on the hills on the border of Luton and you look down, often you see a lot of grey and some flecks of green, which are indicative of Luton, because we are an urban town. We are a really tightly knit urban town of really high density. So one of the tricks is get out into the green and get inspired. On Inspire FM. Okay, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back in 4 minutes.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Hassan Khan, founder of Galandar Arts. Just been on Inspire FM 105.1 FM. Had a great morning show with Shamiza Rashid to discuss Muslim issues and community issues, and I hope Inspire FM continue doing the great work that they are.
AK Windows South Limited, manufacturers and installers of high-quality UPVC windows and doors, bifold doors, composite doors, conservatories, porches, skypods, fascias, guttering, and much, much more. We specialize in double glazing and triple glazing using the best German profile. If you want quality at affordable prices, AK Windows is the place to go. If your house needs a facelift, you know who to trust. For a free quote, call AK Windows today on 01582 483 777 or visit us at Unit 10E, Britannia Estate, Leagrave Road, Luton.
How many times have you needed urgent medical supplies but don't know where to go? At Harris Pharmacy, we take pride in delivering a high-level healthcare to our community. This is why we have services such as private one-to-one consultation, free prescription ordering from GP and delivery to your home, mobility aids such as providing wheelchairs and many other items for everyday use. Call us today on free phone 0800 458 2850 to discuss your medical needs. We are open from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Harris Pharmacy, 165 A/B, Dunstable Road, Luton.
Need a ride? Village Taxis has you covered. Going to the airport, station, work, hospital or school? Call Village Taxis on Luton 250 for a quick, reliable service. New drivers wanted? Get registered today and join the Village Taxis team, serving Luton, Central Beds, TfL, Wolverhampton, Hertfordshire and beyond. Taxi rental also available. Download our easy-to-use Village Taxis app or call on 01582 250 250 to book your ride today. Village Taxis, your local taxi company.
Are you looking for a prompt let and comprehensive property management by property professionals? If so, relax and let a safe registered agent take care of all your property matters. Marigold Residentials believe in 100% customer satisfaction and aim to provide quality service at very competitive prices. Why not also let us take care of your property sale? We're now a proud member of the National Association of Estate Agents. We also advertise in local papers free of charge. Visit us at 251 Dunstable Road or call us on 617 617. Terms and conditions apply.
While the world watches the crisis in Gaza unfold on the news, MATW is there, on the ground, right now, actively operating inside Gaza, delivering critical aid directly to those who need it. Medical supplies, food, clean water, and emergency shelter when it matters. Your donation can save lives right now, on the ground. Text MATW to 70470 to donate £10 or visit matwproject.org.uk, because when it matters most, we're there.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is I Am Khalid. You are tuned into the Rise and Shine show with Tariq. Keep it locked.
Does your car sound like this on the school run? Want to change that? Then tune into the Rise and Shine Show with Brother T. Sing along to awesome nasheeds, answer our puzzling riddles, and tell us what you think of our newest events. The Rise and Shine Show, every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 5:30.
Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the Nature Show with me, your host, Raheed Salam, and with Aaron Matthew. We are talking all about habitats and the different types of habitat we have here in Luton. I just wanted to bring it back a little bit to a couple of things that we were mentioning earlier on, very much around the sorts of habitat that we have, and the sorts of things that God Almighty has reminded of us of. And I wanted to mention some of the plants that are that are mentioned in the Quran. And I think there are so many plants, foodstuffs, species out there, and that perhaps sometimes we forget what they are. If anybody wants to write in and tell us any of the plants that they particularly, or plants, animals, birds, fruits, foods, etc., that they know of in the Quran, please do type in, do write in, and you can message us on 0779 481 822. If anybody wants to talk to us about your experience in nature and habitat, and the way in which you connect specifically with nature because of your connectivity with the Quran or with the religion, please do. But there are a number of plants mentioned in the Quran, and some that are a little bit more popular than others. But I guess the most popular ones that we know of are the fig, the olive, the date, and perhaps the pomegranate. Those are the ones that I certainly do remember, but there are others as well, including garlic, lentils, onions. There is a banana tree, and grains. All of these are things that are mentioned in the Quran, and the reason why they're mentioned in the Quran, absolutely, are just to remind us that all of these plants that we do have are part of God's creation and the wonder of God's creation, and really to remind us of two things. First of all, for us to be able to know that God Almighty, as the creator, is the provider and sustainer of ourselves and nourishes us thus. But I guess the other thing is, and this is something that I always remember, is the fruits and the water and the milk and the honey that we talk about in this life is not necessarily the same as what you would have in heaven. But there is a reminder and a remembrance that God is sustaining us in this life, but also will sustain us in the afterlife. And I know we don't have the knowledge of that. I mean, how could we? But the mentioning of fruits, of nature, biodiversity in the afterlife does help us to have this realization that God's still taking care of us. And that's something that always sticks with me. And I just want to mention one other last thing, if I can, before I bring Aaron into this. And this is that the flower that is known as God's flower, if you like, and the flower of heaven rather, is the rose. And this is why the rose is always representative of the soul, and the rose is representative of the flower of heaven. So just wanted to leave that thought with you. And perhaps we don't always necessarily think about these things in the way in which I've just mentioned?
I don't think we do. No, I think we don't usually give it that religious context, and we're reminded that it is, an equal part of creation that we are too. And it's really cool to hear it, and it brings back that kind of custodian view of everything. And I don't think we look at ourselves as custodians of nature very often, but if I, talked about people who plant things in their garden, you're also managing things for nature, and it should be the same way we treat our parks and our green spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe if we did think about it that way, maybe we would take better care of it. I was talking to colleagues earlier on today about the way in which we feel when we connect with nature. And if you close your eyes, then there's, you do open your senses up, and your senses are that you may smell better, you may hear it better, and you may feel it better in terms of the sun, the wind, but also the smells and the sounds that you get from water, or the smells that you get from nature, which are extremely unique.
I think so.
Yeah, I've never really been a massive fan of scents.
Yeah.
I've got quite a particular nose, not only just because it's a bit on the large side, but I just don't like strong scents.
Right.
But the scents that we have, it's always good to be able to make fun of yourself. But the scents that you have when you think of nice food, or a flower, or even when you think of the smell of freshly cut grass, or not freshly cut grass, or when you're going through a woodland area, are completely unique, no?
Oh, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned the woodland area at the end, because, one of the key woodland species we can get is lavender. And that's such a lovely smell. I don't know if you enjoy the smell of lavender, but I think most people do.
I'm not actually a massive fan of lavender, but I can definitely appreciate it, because there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah.
I don't think there is anything quite like it. Yeah.
Nothing that comes to mind, but I think it's quite calming, and it's a woodland species, and naturally it would occur. But that's another key habitat we have here in Luton, and we even have ancient woodland in Luton, which I think is just some of the most fascinating bits of area you can have, because it's an area that's automatically over 400 years old, being around since at least 1600, and places like Birmingham Wood or Haywood are like that. And it makes the area so unique. And there's one feature I find especially interesting. It's called a mycorrhizal network. Now, that's a massive word, folks, but I want you to keep listening. I swear I have a point.
Mycorrhizal networks. Okay, let's hear about it.
Okay, so the best way I would describe it is almost like Wi-Fi for the woodland. So it's this network of fungi, and what it basically does is help transfer nutrients, sugars, and waters between each plant species. It actually acts like an information highway and a nutrient highway for the forest. I find it so cool.
Folks, not only do you get entertainment, you also get the science. There you go. If you want to know if you would like to have a reminder of what some of the terminologies we've been talking about, so we've been talking about pollinators, for example. What's a pollinator? We're not going to tell you. If you want to text in and let us know what a pollinator is, or the 3 different types of pollination and why pollination is required, you can catch us on 01582 481 822. I will take your call. Or if you want to text in, it's 07779 481 822. I know people listen, because people tell me they listen, but I think everyone's just a little bit shy, or maybe just in the middle of doing that wonderful thing, preparing dinner. So
I can see that.
Indeed. I've lost my flow a little bit, but we were talking a little bit about ancient woodland. The other fantastic thing you can do without ancient woodland is go on a nature walk.
Yep.
And there are lots and lots of really fantastic nature walks that you can do. And there are lots of organizations out there that are walk leaders. I'm a walk leader. Aaron's a walk leader. Lots of people out there that are walk leaders. So if you would like to get out and about and go for a walk, then that's something you should definitely do. I'm just going to make a very quick confession here. My favorite walk of the year is the walk after Christmas lunch on the 25th of December.
Okay.
Yeah. So If anybody wants to go for a nature walk, and there's lots of New Year kind of walks that
Yes.
happen as well. So yeah, this actually is a good time to get ready for nature walks and maybe do some physical prep just in time for Ramadan, which is coming up in the middle of February as well. So yes, absolutely get ready for that. Indeed. So we were talking a little bit about how to protect habitats and the difference between keeping your grass long, not keeping it long, having a very pretty garden or not having a very pretty garden. In other words, having a bit of a messy area. Aaron, tell us a little bit about why these different ways of protecting and nurturing or just leaving your garden be is very good for the ecosystem and for habitats.
Awesome.
themselves.
I'd be happy to. Okay, so I'm going to make it as relevant as I can to the time of year that we're currently in. So, for example, you might have like a log pile in your garden or just a sheltered area that's a bit warmer than the rest. So, like we spoke about at the beginning of the episode, we are in the middle of a cold snap. It's quite chilly outside. I can't hibernate, but if I could, I would be. And a lot of animals actually can hibernate, from anything from butterflies to ladybugs, hedgehogs, beetles, all sorts. And those warmer, sometimes slightly drier areas, or even sometimes damp, can make all the difference between them, waking up to see the next season and surviving. Because I don't know about you, this year we've had a lot of ladybugs everywhere, right? We had swarms all over the place.
There's been a phenomenal amount of ladybugs. I know some people call them ladybirds. We're calling them ladybugs today. But I remember on that wonderful thing called social media, there was swarms, and also across the room, across the news, there were swarms of ladybugs absolutely everywhere. And I got lots of ladybugs inside the house as well as outside the house. So yes. What was with the ladybugs?
So what happened, because we had a really, really warm summer, ladybugs eat, well, mostly aphids. Aphids are these small, annoying little green flies. And those of you who are gardeners, you'll know them well, because those are the things eating holes in your cabbages. You've been blaming slugs, they do it too, but it's mostly aphids, right? So ladybugs eat those. And because of the warm summer, we had a massive boom in aphid populations. And this basically meant it was a buffet for ladybugs. So they were just here, there, and everywhere.
Eat as much as you'd like.
Pretty much. That was exactly it. And because the weather was so warm up until about November, they were around active and eating. And then suddenly, as it got colder, they thought, might be nice to go inside. But what can help us is those log piles and those areas of habitat, because instead of, running straight into your living room, they could be in that log pile or a little spot on the outside of your shed, or just somewhere a bit more convenient for yourself and themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that. And having a well-maintained area in your garden and having a slightly messy area in your garden, what are the advantages, or what is the purpose of having both of those at the same time?
I think it's also about considering yourself and the wildlife. It's a bit of a mosaic. I think that's like how all of our land is. You might prefer cut grass because you have children around and you don't want them to trip on anything, and that's perfectly fine. You should have that balancing act of things. Or for example, it's autumn time and there are leaves everywhere. Raking them into a pile isn't necessarily a problem. Letting them rot down is great for wildlife, and having that leaf pile is perfect. And your kids love it too because they get to jump in. I mean, I know I like to jump around and kick in some leaf piles, and it helps. It's a balancing act, I think.
There are plenty of people that like doing that. Shout out for Saba Ayanur, who loves kicking leaves on me quite a lot. But there we go. I do say sometimes it's not a good idea to kick them, because sometimes there might be something not so great inside.
Sure.
Some people don't listen. That's okay. That's okay. The other wonderful thing about keeping a log pile or having a messy area is to encourage that biodiversity.
Yeah.
And also to keep that. And another thing that we can do, and shout out to the wonderful Connie Depper. I think you've had 2 shout outs now over the current 6 weeks, is to compost.
Yes.
And composting is a really, really fantastic way of managing and maintaining those nutrients. Tell us a little bit about how we can retain, and any top tips on composting.
I mean, this one is quite simple, really. It's just separating your waste. So, all the foodstuffs that you would normally throw away in your black bin, Get a separate bin for your compost. And for those who are looking to start a garden or even just have a couple plants around the house, you enrich them with the nitrates that come down into that by just letting them sit in a bit of soil, maybe even add some worms to help the process speed along. Have it sealed because it will smell terrible. But I promise it's worth it for your garden and for wildlife.
You've mentioned the word there, the word that lots of people are really, really scared of. Worms.
Oh, really? People are scared of worms?
Do you not think so?
I don't know.
Worms and spiders, I think, are the two, no?
I think spiders and wasps.
Oh, you think spiders and wasps?
Yeah.
Okay. I've always thought, maybe this is my mistake, or maybe not, it's just my perception, is that some people don't like the mud, or they don't like they don't like getting in the mud because of the worms.
I thought like worms are gross, right? That's the thought people have, that they're gross and so is the mud. The mud is dirty, as opposed to them being scary the way a spider on your shoulder would be, or like, you know, that horrible sound in your ear when the wasps show up. I understand their place in the ecosystem and what amazing predators they are. I get a little jumpy sometimes.
I love wasps and bumblebees.
Wasps, really?
And spiders and worms, although I don't spend that much time with worms nowadays. Yes, indeed. But yeah, I really welcome them. I really welcome them because I know that they are fulfilling a purpose.
Yes.
To be honest. And I think, you know, a bee, a wasp, and a spider is there to help and support nature and to nurture nature. And so I think if one looks at it that way, but both of us being involved in the environment, I think we're probably possibly quite automatically less likely to have that. But I think maybe that's a symptom a little bit of the built environment that we have. We don't have as much appreciation for it because we don't connect to it, and therefore what you don't know might become scary for you.
I think so. There's definitely a fear of the unknown aspect, but I just wanted to give a bit of help to spiders because
let's do it.
I think they are really cool and they don't get enough love for what they do. Everyone gets a little jumpy when they see a spider around the house, but I want you to think about what they're actually doing there. They're eating flies. Now, spiders aren't noisy. Flies definitely are. And I don't know about you. I know which one I'd prefer having around the house. It's either, you know, just that little quiet thing in the corner of the room doing his own thing, making a web, looks cool, bit of artwork around the house, versus, again, that sound everywhere.
I think we've hit a nerve. I think we've hit a nerve. I think we know what's going on. Let's move the conversation on.
Right.
Let's move the conversation on. So we've got bugs and worms and other larger rodents that definitely manage our local habitat the way in which they do. But what is it that we need to do as people living in Luton who can actually manage the land? And what is it that we do or should be doing more of in order to manage our spaces, particularly perhaps the wilder areas?
Okay, well, let's get into it. I mean, there's all sorts of different habitats that we've spoken about, and they all need help in different ways. The same way we like to manage our gardens, be that mow the lawn or put something in or whatever the case may be, our parks and our countrysides actually need the same bit of help, despite, you know, that idea of leave it to nature. For example, if we take somewhere like Warden and Galley Hill, at the moment, they're filled with things like, you know, hawthorn and blackthorn and all these nasty, scrubby bits that, you know, might poke you if you're going for a walk. And actually, given the way the habitat is, it'd be a lot better for ourselves and for the wildlife if it was, you know, that chalk grass and that meadow. So clearing and cutting scrub definitely helps. Our woodlands, not so much our ancient woodlands because they've kind of found balance over the last 400 years.
Indeed.
But, you know, some of our newer woodlands need a bit of help in terms of selectively felling, and that's just taking down some trees to let some light in for some smaller plants or even birds and butterflies to find their way, or if you were so lucky to see a dormouse, all sorts of things. I mean, our rivers, cleaning it generally, redirecting, monitoring stuff. Monitoring is a big thing. We actually don't know what's going on until you look at it.
It's huge. It's huge. And, you know, this thing that is citizen science
Yes.
and river monitoring and actually understanding our ecosystems and understanding, you know, the the natural environment within our built environment is a huge piece of work that we do need to understand, to protect, preserve, but also to cohabit effectively. We're not going to talk about climate change today, people, because there's just too much to cover. But you mentioned scrub clearance there. Let's get into a few terminologies here. What is a scrub clearance? Why is a scrub clearance important, and how do you do it?
Okay, so what it is mostly is just kind of removing, I'd say, like, they're like brambly, scrubby plants, and that it's usually quite thorny. They pop up quite quickly. That's a very important thing. Like, let's say you were to leave your garden too long, you could end up with some nettles or some thorns, and our parks and green spaces are the same way. And it's making sure managing that balance and giving the grasses a chance to grow and these rare flowers by, it could be, sawing these small kind of shrubs off completely. It could be using a pair of loppers. They're like giant pliers. For those who haven't seen a pair of loppers, they're pretty cool, I think. In taking these trees down, clearing them off the land, and sometimes even burning them.
So everybody who manages their garden, you are doing some form of scrub clearance.
That's right.
You are doing scrub clearance. So thank you for that. And the other really important thing that you've just mentioned there is scrub clearance is really important to make way for the plants and animals around us, so that there is a good degree of the natural variety of those plants and animals to be able to enjoy those spaces, but also protect and preserve what is already there. People don't know that when you cut something down, you're protecting and preserving it.
That's right. You can actually help by cutting things down, because there's a balancing act. Scrub is important in scrubby areas where it should be, because that helps birds keep their nest safe from things that might want to eat it, like a fox or something. However, if you were to leave it, it would just slowly creep in and take over everywhere. Woodland is great, but if we didn't intervene sometimes, because we don't have animals to knock down trees, you would find one type of tree taking over the whole woods, and that doesn't help everything. So yeah, everything has its place in the mosaic, but we do too, helping out.
Absolutely. I want to touch on one final point just before we leave, and that is the issue of tree planting.
Yes.
There is a lot of tree planting that happens locally, and there's a lot of tree planting that organizations such as the National Trust are about to undergo with a lot of volunteers. What is the purpose of tree planting? Because I know last week on the episode with Julie and Louise, we were talking about the Amazon rainforest and the destruction and the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest. But why is it important for us here in the leafy suburb of Luton? It's not really a leafy suburb, it's a leafy town. Why do we need more tree planting here?
Okay, so, well, for a long time, actually, most of Britain was, had a larger woodland percentage. So a lot of the country's green spaces were dominated by woodland. Luton is no different if you were to, look back on maps. And it's about regenerating that for the sake of not only ourselves in terms of, the air we breathe and having more oxygen in the environment and counteracting pollution. It's also, again, for birds and pretty things like squirrels and, again, things to nest underneath in the roots or bury into the bark. And it also stores carbon. So it's great. But like you said, there's a bit of a problem. Woodlands are great where woodlands should be. And again, you have to think about what goes into a woodland. You need our native trees and the trees that help support things. So the problem sometimes people go, well, something's wrong. Let's just stick a tree in the ground. And it doesn't necessarily help, because it might be a conifer tree. Now, a conifer tree is great if we live in Scotland. Last time I checked, we're not actually in Scotland. A conifer tree is like, your Christmas trees. They're quite apt this time of year with those kind of needle-like leaves. But they often get planted down because they'll survive quite easily. They grow quite quickly, but it's not always the best thing for the woodland and for the wildlife.
There you have it, folks. There you have it. And I think it's really important, because the population of Luton is going up and up and up, and the population of the world is going up as well. We do need to have balance between our human footprint, our travel footprint,
yes,
and also the climate footprint, off the back of the fact that we are have a larger footprint. We are traveling more. There is more logistics. There is more services. There is more food that we require to eat. There is more waste that goes into the food that we eat. There is more of a relationship between us and our habitat. And so all of these things are absolutely there. I just want to give a bit of a shout out to a tree planting initiative that has happened on the other side of the world. If I can just find it. Yes, absolutely. So, ladies and gents, when we think about India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, etc., they are at the hard end of climate change, because if you have a country that usually has a temperature of say 35 to 40 degrees and all of a sudden it's got a regular temperature of mid 45 degrees going up towards 50, then that is a lot. So there are tree planting initiatives in Pakistan that have happened, and we know that there has been real issues in Pakistan with flooding and climate change. Currently, there is a planting project of over 10 billion trees across the whole of Pakistan, which is absolutely amazing. And I just want to drop that there because I know we spoke about tree planting here in the UK, and it's on the sort of up to tens of thousands. In some countries, it's going up to 10 billion. Ladies and gents, we're in the last 30 seconds of our show. We are so pleased that you've listened to our show today, talking about habitats and the way in which we have these adorable green spaces within our urban place here in Luton. Aaron, thanks so much for educating us all. I think we need to put a bibliography of terms out there.
I think so.
Check out our Instagram page, the Inspire FM Instagram page, and everything will go on there. Lovely speaking to you all. Have a wonderful evening. Speak to you soon next Wednesday at 5 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum.